Okay, and this right here, you should have this sheet and this sheet. Now we need to solve the equation. And x to the second is the highest power, so they all have two answers. Okay, just like that. Alright, now do what we normally do. We know we have x to the second. Now do we have any other kinds of x's? Yeah, right there. X to the second x, so we have to use factoring. So you need to have one side of the equation equal to 0. Okay, so I need to get rid of this 5. 5 doesn't go with either one of these, so we're going to put that just after everything. And then we have to add the 3x to the second. Okay, and the 3x to the second would go with the 4x to the second, because those are like terms. Okay. Alright, so I end up with 7x to the second. It's not x to the fourth. A lot of people think you add those two. That's a multiplication thing, not an addition thing. Keep the power the same on addition. Minus 3x minus 5 equals 0, and we are ready to roll. So we now know there are three terms in GCF and the t-chart. Okay. GCF, do we have a negative in front? Nope. Do you have x on everything? Nope. 7, 3, and 5 would have just a GCF of 1, so that means I get rid of this. Okay. Then I ABC that. I take A times C, and that's going to be 7 times negative 5, and that's going to be negative 35. So it's negative, so I'm looking for a difference that would equal 3. Here's the problem. 1 and 35 is not a difference of 3, and then 2, 3, and 4 are all decimals. 35 divided by 5 is 7. Well, 7 minus 5 is not a difference of 3. That's 2. So I'm too low to be a difference of 3. Okay? So what you do is cross this out. You abort mission. And instead of doing parentheses, you're going to use the quadratic formula. And here's a song to help you remember it. X equals, I'll just put that kind of out in front of that. And it goes like this. Opposite of B, plus or minus D squared root B squared minus 4AC, B squared minus 4AC over 2A, over 2A. Opposite of B, plus or minus D squared root B squared minus 4AC, B squared minus 4AC over 2A, over 2A. Okay, so I make a big long line and I put a plus minus right there. Before the plus minus, we put the opposite of B. The opposite of B is positive 3. And then the plus minus, then I make a big long square root. And here's what I do. I make a parentheses to the second power, and then I put a minus. Okay, remember the second power, remember the minus. And then after that, we're going to put 3 parentheses in a row. And we always put a 4 in that one, even if it's not in the problem. Okay, so B to the second, okay? Put the second outside. B is negative 3. And then 4, and then A, well, A is 7. And don't put any X's in here, just the numbers. And then C is negative 5, okay? And on bottom, you put a 2. And then A is 7, okay? Now, once you have it all set up, you're going to make the line plus, minus, and we have a 3 in front of it. I'm going to circle the square root because I'm going to have to figure that out. And on bottom, 2 times 7 is 14. Now, you have two options here. Here's the first option. To figure out the square root, you can go up, make 2 square roots. And the first thing you can do is take negative 3 times itself, okay? That's one product you have to find. And remember, this minus, just put this up here in the middle, okay? Just put it up there. Just transfer that over here, and it's always minus. And then the other product is 4 times 7 times negative 5. And that's positive 9. So I put that before the minus. And 4 times 7 times negative 5 is going to be negative 140. Okay. Now when we're minusing a negative, we want to switch that to just plus plus, and that's 149. Now I find the square root of that on my calculator. Now when you're using the quadratic formula, even if it's a decimal, that's okay. You'll just round it. So it's 12.21. Now here's your other option with this. Instead of doing this work over here, this calculator can punch that in, but if you're just going to use your calculator, you need to put a double parentheses at the beginning. Okay, so I go second square root, get that up, and one parentheses comes up, and we need a double. The reason why we need a double is because the first parentheses tells me I want all this crap under the square root. And then this second parentheses is for just a negative 3. So negative 3, close it. Hit your second power button. Minus. Parentheses, and then put a 4 inside. Parentheses, put a 7 inside. And parentheses, put a negative 5 inside. And I get the same thing. Okay? You can do it either way. Now to finish the problem, what you do is you punch in 3 plus 12.21, and then you have to click equals because you need to find the sum first, and then divide by 14. Because if you punch it all in at the same time, it's going to divide and then find the sum. That's 1.09. If you're off by your rounding, that's okay. And now I find the difference. So 3 minus 12.21 equals, and then divide that by 14, negative 0.66. So this is what we need to do if that T-chart is not working and I'm not finding the factors. Okay, the next problem. 2 answers. And we have x to the second. We also have x, so that makes this a factoring problem. Okay, so we need to have our 0. Now, instead of moving all this crap, why don't we just add 10? And then I can add 10 to the 12. That'd be a lot easier, don't you think? So I have 1x to the second minus 10x plus 22 equals 0. And now I can clearly see we have 3 terms. And I know that the procedure to solve 3 terms with factoring is a GCF and then my trinomial T-chart. Remember, a trinomial is an expression with 3 non-like terms. GCF, do I have a negative in front? Nope. Do I have x on everything? Nope. And then 1, 10, and 22 is going to be 1. So I don't need to worry about that. I'm just going to do my ABC here. So A times C. I take positive 1 times positive 22, and that's 22 positive. And I'm looking for a sum then that would equal 10. But the problem with that is 1 and 22 is not 10. 22 divided by 2 is 11. That's 13. Well, that's not 10 either. Okay? So this is a fail. Okay? Just put fail. F. Fail. So we have a backup, and it's a quadratic formula. It's plus minus, so opposite of B, E, opposite of B, E. So the opposite of negative 10 is 10. That's the only one you make opposite. The rest of it just goes as you see. And then a square root, parentheses. Put that to the second, and then a minus, and then 3 parentheses in a row, and we're always going to put a 4 in that one. Now B goes here, and B looks to be negative 10. And then A is 1, and C is 22. Okay, and right here we have 2, and then A, so 2 times 1. Okay. All right, so plus minus, I have 10. 2 times 1 is 2. And I need to figure out that square root. So remember, you have two options. One way is to do it by hand. So I have, and by the way, we have a minus, okay? It's always minus. So negative 10 times itself, that's what a second power does, and that's 100. And then I also have 4 times 1 times 22, and that equals 88. So I have 100 before the minus and 88 after it, and that's 12. Now, because this is because we weren't isolating x squared, we can just go. I'm fine with a decimal. The only time you have to do those two square roots on scratch paper is if you're isolating the x squared, which we are not. And I got 3.46. Okay. Once again, if you want to do that by calculator, you add a parentheses at the beginning. You have to do that. So there'll be 2 at the beginning. Negative 10, close it, second power it, minus, and then 4, and then 1, and then 22, and I get the same thing. So I'm going to go 10 plus 3.46 equals, and then divide by 2, 6.73. Okay, and then 10 minus 3.46 equals, divide by 2, and that's 3.27. Okay, 2 more. Got Act 2 answers. For x's, I have the x to the second and the x and other factoring problems, so you need to line up the equation. So we have 0, that's a 1x, plus 17. Now, would that go with negative 4? No, it wouldn't go with 1x either, so plus 17 behind it. Negative 4x to the second plus 1x plus 17 equals 0. And I can clearly see we have 3 terms. So I'm going to go to the GCF and then my trinomial chart. Okay, GCF, you got a negative in front? You do. So we at least have that. Do you have x on everything? Nope. And the GCF out of 4, 1, and 17 is 1, but we have to do that because the 1 is negative. So negative 1, like that. So you're going to have positive 4x to the second. 1 divided by negative 1 is negative 1, so please put minus 1x. 17 divided by negative 1 is negative 17, so minus 17. And then we do the ABC from here. Okay. So I will be taking a times c, and that's 4 times negative 17. Okay, and that gives me 68 negative, so difference of 1. That's impossible. Okay, I'm just going to tell you right now, all these T-charts are fail on this assignment. Because that's the goal is to get you to practice the quadratic formula. Opposite of B, okay? 1 plus or minus. Remember, I'm doing the ABC from here. That's where I get my values, not up here anymore. If I have to do a GCF, I want to go from the GCF part. Parentheses second minus 3 parentheses. 4 goes here. And then B is negative 1. A is 4. And C is negative 17. And then I have 2, and then A is 4. Okay, so I put my plus minus, and I know I have 1 in front of the plus minus, and then behind it I just have that square root that we'll have to figure out. And then in the denominator I have the product of 2 and 4, which is 8. Okay, you can do it this way. Okay, so negative 1 to the second, that would be negative 1 times itself. That's 1. And by the way, it's always minus because that's the formula has minus. And then 4 times 4 times negative 17. Okay, whatever that equals. Negative 272. So I'm going to have 1 in front and then negative 272 behind it, and that goes plus plus, and that's 273. So I find the square root of 273. That gives me 16.52. So again, I'm going to be adding 1 plus 16.52 equals, dividing by 8, 2.19. Okay, and then 1 minus 16.52 divided by 8 is negative 1.94. Like I said, you can punch that in on the calculator and avoid having to do this and get the 16.52 right away. So second square root, double it, negative 1, close it, second, minus, remember the minus, okay, if you forget the minus and just keep entering parentheses, it's going to be wrong. 4, negative 17. Okay, I got the same thing. Alright, and then the last one, I have two answers. And I have x to the second and x to the first. Okay, so again, it's another factoring problem. And you're going to need to line up the equation so it's equal to 0. So minus 1x. And that doesn't go with 2x squared. It doesn't go with 7. So I guess we're just going to have to go like that. So I have 2x squared minus 1x minus 7 equals 0. And now I know there are 3 terms that I'm trying to factor. You really don't know how many terms there are to factor until you have them all on one side. You didn't collect any like terms, although we didn't have one on this one. Okay, GCF, you got a negative in front? Nope. You got x on everything? Nope. 2, 1, and 7, the GCF's 1, so if it's just 1, out. Okay, so A times C, so that's 2 times negative 7, and that gives me 14 negative, so it's negative, so we're looking for a difference of 1. Okay. Problem is I'm relatively sure there are no difference of 1, so I put fail. That was a fail. So x equals, get that plus minus there. So the opposite of b would be 1 square root. First parentheses needs a second power, and then a minus, and then 3 of these in a row. Okay. All right, and then the b is negative 1, and then 4, and a is 2, and c is negative 7. And in the bottom we have 2, and a is 2. Okay, so we have plus minus, and then we have 1. 2 times 2 is 4. And then, again, this square root, we can use this or the calculator. Okay, I'm guessing most of you are going to go to your calculator. That's fine. Make sure you punch it in right. So I have negative 1 times itself. That's what the second power means, and that's 1. And there's a minus there. And then 4 times 2 times negative 7 is negative 56. So it's going to be 1 minus negative 56. And then plus plus, and that's 57. So I find the square root of 57, and that's going to be 7.55. Now, if you choose your calculator, make sure you add a parentheses at the beginning, just at the beginning. So second square root, because that's communicating to your calculator. Minus. Remember to get the second power, and you got to hit minus after the second power. I got a lot of people that just keep entering in parentheses. No, the minus has to go there. Only one of them, but it's got to be there. Okay, so same thing. So I find the sum of 1 and 7.55 first, and then I click equals, and then divide by 4, and then 2.14 would be the first solution. Then 1 minus 7.55 divided by 4, negative 1.64 would be our second. Okay, guys, you got 4 problems to do. I hope that's been informative, and